Hello, my friends. I'm Ryan Sheehan. I'm here to give my presentation for Week 2 Performance Assessment for EDU 662. So my first question was, who designs performance assessments? And according to the article that we were given, it's just evaluating it just means it's evaluating what you can do by observing you doing it and requiring some kind of constructive or creative act. So we're going to take this a step further and just say in an exemplary school, just a system is developed within a community of practice, for example, the actual school district, and reflects its culture and values. For my school, the curriculum that we use for this is MESA units, which are found online, but it's not a requirement to use it. It's just kind of like a guidelines if you want to use it. If you want to use something else, you can run it by our administration and you can see what happens from there, which is kind of awkward in a way, but I can explain that a little more later. So really the only performance assessment that we actually do is the M-STEP, which is designed by the state of Michigan. For the exemplary, this is a system that constitutes a holistic project spanning over a prolonged period of learning. One of the most common forms of such a project is portfolio development and evaluation. For our school, administration meets and discusses which practices are best, and we have something called PLCs, Professional Learning Communities, and this is where a representative from administration, whether the principal or assistant principal, meet up with us and they discuss the practices that they discussed are best used and kind of just guide us on what to do. How many performance assessments are there and what each one reflects. So in this exemplary school, there should be no more than 5 performance assessments in the system. Each performance should comprehensively and holistically reflect a logically organized part of our complex world. I kind of feel bad because we're nowhere near 5 performance assessments. We have the M-STEP, and we do that in the spring. But if you want to consider it, we do NWEA testing. This is in the fall, winter, and spring. It's nice. It's just a progressive test. If you get an answer right, the question becomes harder. And if you get a question wrong, questions follow up get a little bit easier. And then it just gives you a number on how well you compare to other students, and there's like norms and other things like that. It's great for initial feedback because if you use M-STEP and you take that performance assessment, you don't have answers or results for months, so you don't even know if you're doing something right or wrong. NWEA is awesome in the sense that you get immediate feedback, and that's fantastic. How do the performance assessments relate to the standards? Performance assessments distill the standards. Standards describe quality. With analysis, performance assessments allows to assess quality with synthesis in a live, authentic act. Again, just the M-STEP is aligned with the Common Core, so that's about all we use in Bertram. Performance assessments should be interdisciplinary, but also should allow students to learn important differences, discipline-specific thinking. For us, the curriculum that we use are MESA units, and I use this website, this Oakland University one, which I'll explain a little bit later as well. How are the rubrics developed and used? Exemplary, a common shared system of rubrics should be shared across multiple performances. I put last year no and this year yes. Last year, really, we didn't have any type of rubrics or anything like expectations. This year, a little bit more. We use something, not necessarily a rubric, I'd say more of a template, which I can explain that more as well. We use a system called Stages, but it's nowhere near what this template is for their performance assessments. We only ask you 5 questions on what standards are you hitting, what How are you going to get students engaged in the material? Like questions similar to that, but nothing as detailed as the rubric or the template. So that's why I say, like, we have it, kind of, but we're not quite there yet. Nowhere near as detailed. The upside here, for exemplary performance assessment portions on multiple tests, there's rubrics. The money is worth the results and develops authentic knowledge and skills. For us in Bertrand, like, we align with the state's standards and Common Core and NWEA as well. So that's an upside. MESA units for the language arts, and that's what I use. And again, I'll talk about that in a moment, towards the end of this presentation. And it's just a really strong curriculum that hits on all of the standards and Common Core. So it's really nice. Another upside of this is freedom. And Bertrand, again, they don't necessarily tell you what you have to teach or anything. So you have, like, freedom on when you have the standards, you have the Common Core. But when it comes to performance assessment, they don't tell you exactly what you need to hit. So it's nice to have that freedom. Some challenges, exemplary, again, cost some money. Validity and reliability, there are continuous revisions and collaboration. So it's something that it's kind of like, a living document in a way. It's never finished. Like, it's consistently being updated, and there's constant revisions. Some challenges, especially when it comes to, like, some performance assessments that we do. Again, if we're counting NWEA, there's time commitment to it. So that can be a little frustrating, the timing involved in it. And when it comes to actually getting our results, whether it is MSTEP or with NWEA, not all teachers use the data, which can be frustrating. I'm sure this happens in all schools. There's always going to be some teachers that do this. And I said there's no reprimands because, I don't get to see other people's NWEA scores or anything like that, but I know that they don't necessarily use the data to change their instruction. Some people, it's, I hate using the term, like, can't teach old dog new tricks or anything, but some people are kind of set in their ways. So that can be a little frustrating, and that can be a challenge. Analyzing the value of the planning template. So Envision Learning Partners, I like that it had 3 parts: predetermined outcomes, a task through which students can demonstrate what they know and can do, and criteria that describes what meeting the outcomes look like. Bertrand, again, we don't necessarily have a template. But what I like about what the Envision had was it makes you accountable. You might think you are doing things correctly, but seeing it written down is very sensible to me. Makes a lot of sense because, there's a lot of things involved in performance assessment, and breaking it down into all these different categories, I just feel is incredibly, again, sensible. It works out well just because there's so much information that you might think you're hitting everything, but that might not be necessarily true. Another thing that I really like is learning targets. Our administration is really hitting home with these this year. Students, like, I will be able to, and then fill in the blank. And again, less is more. You don't want to hit too many in one class. You're just trying to take baby steps to reach that end goal. So I do like those learning targets. What I'm unsure about is the narrative part. Let me find this quick in this right here where it talks about the narrative. It's a tad confusing to me because there's already so much stuff that you're writing down already in here. Is that I don't necessarily you're describing what student success looks like. You're talking about your rubric, your domains, your learning targets, meeting the needs of diverse students. That's great as well. But right here, narrative. Tell the story of the learning process. Describe how students will learn and practice the skills they would need to succeed on this performance assessment. I don't necessarily see the value in that, or how I would even begin writing that, and how much would need to be written, especially as a narrative. So that one I'm just a little unsure about, but I haven't used it, so I don't know if it's incredibly beneficial or not. So, but just right now, a little skeptical. For the rubric now, I love this in the article. The purpose is not merely an assessment tool. It is a communication tool. That really hits home. Seriously, you need to communicate what your expectations are. You can't just hand out a rubric at the end of an assessment and just be like, all right, this is what you were graded on. It's really nice to know that beforehand. Again, it's a work in progress, ready for use, and exemplary. I really like the categories and how they use such vivid detail, and it gives very clear expectations on what is expected of you. All the categories are clear and worthwhile performance outcomes, performance assessment, focus and clarity, coherence, student engagement, the relevance and authenticity. I really like that as well. Why have a performance assessment over something that isn't relevant? Again, I really like how that's a category. Student engagement, choice and decision making, rather than having students be like, you have to do things this way and write about this. The choice, I think, is great. Students should definitely have choice. Student engagement, the accessibility of everything, the curriculum connected, opportunities for self-assessment, peer and teacher feedback. Number 7 hits home as well, because I really like the self-assessment. Even for my class, something that our administration wants us to do is have students be able to self-assess themselves. So when they turn in before they turn in an assignment, they already have a copy of the rubric, and they actually grade themselves. So they can read all of the criteria on what they need to hit, and some students just go browse over it, but I mean, I think you're always going to have that, but some students really take it seriously and take their time with it and be like, oh, actually, I haven't met this goal. So having that self-assessment can be very, very, very beneficial. So I like that in the rubric. These are my references. So I'm going to exit out of this. I'm going to just show you the Oakland website quick, the one that I use for my curriculum. So if you follow that link that I have, I know that you're going to have to type it in, but it takes you just through this. And there's all grades. I'm just opening up to grade 6 because that's what I teach. And it just gives you a roadmap on where you need to go. So if you click on any, there's like a literary essay. It's nice just because then it tells you kind of what your expectations are, graphic organizer of that. It tells you what standards and GLICs that you're hitting. And then the assessment task as well. So pre-unit, mid-unit, post-unit, to kind of gauge where you stand. And then just some of the lesson plans that you should take. So great resource. Again, we're not necessarily, we have to use it in our school. It's recommended. So that's one thing that administration brought up to our attention that can really help out our assessment scores. But good deal. Other than that, we should be looking pretty good. All right. Anyway, hey, have a great night.